Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, and I would like to welcome you back to another video. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. This is my Mandates with Guitar Greats series, and it's a real pleasure today to speak to somebody who I have admired, listened to, studied with, not personally, but from his instructional videos over the years. So it's wonderful to welcome Mr. Bruce Forman to the channel. Bruce, how's it going?
Oh, it's great. Thanks for having me up here. I really appreciate it. Great to talk to you and everybody else here.
You are more than welcome, sir. So why don't we start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself. Where are you based?
I'm based in California. Originally from San Francisco, spent a long time in LA. I'm artist in residence at USC, the Thornton School of Music, the studio guitar department. Currently live in Carmel Valley, which is the Monterey Peninsula area of Carmel. It's a very beautiful place. But I'm traveling the world, doing my thing, you know.
So when it comes to the idea of like getting to sit and talk to Bruce Forman about things, the way I was initially introduced to your playing is early on in my playing life, when I started to discover the internet and players that existed in the world, I discovered Brent Mason, and Brent Mason talked about Western swing, and I fell in love with this Western swing sound, and then I just had this affinity for anyone that I thought was a cowboy that played jazz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, obviously, we're sitting here and talking to you, and you've got the classic hat on, right? So, in terms of your playing history, where would you say, how would you describe your playing? Because there's obviously so much authentic jazz in there, but you also have that love and respect for what I would deem to be like Texas swing music.
Yeah, well, of course, I love that music. I actually grew up in Texas.
Sure.
So Bob Wills, that music was played on the jukeboxes and in the honky tonks and restaurants, wherever I ended up. I heard it a lot as a kid, and it always attracted me, as did straight ahead jazz. I remember hearing cartoons, like Betty Boop and stuff, and hearing amazing jazz music on that and just being really attracted to it. I was a classical pianist at the time. Got a guitar, around the Beatles time, and fell in love with that, and took some lessons, and kind of realized that I could play all the same notes that I'd been playing on the piano on the guitar. And that was a big revelation for me at probably the age of 11 or 12, and then started, of course, learning, Beatles tunes and all that, and the blues. And then I heard Charlie Parker at about the age of 14. He's this great bebop saxophone player, and that music just sort of synthesized all the stuff that had been attracting me in music for a long time. I realized thinking back of all the pop music that I really love and loved at the time, it was all very harmonic. Sure. I was not really into the bands that played kind of 2 chords, 3 chords. I was, always attracted to the Beatles or Elton John or Traffic, Stevie Winwood and those guys. They definitely were a lot more harmonic in the content of their music. And I guess that probably goes all the way back to my classical piano playing. And then when I heard Charlie Parker and that, it was just like it opened this door. And then I started hearing Bob Wills again through the lens of jazz versus the lens of just country music.
Yeah.
And it was on the jukebox, so it attracted. And I even have a Western swing band called Cowbop, which is far more bebop based than your typical Western swing band. But that's because who I am. I mean, it was really never an attempt to create a fusion. It was just the music we were playing. I'm actually a cowboy. I do ride and rope, or did a lot, and train horses. So I was hanging around cowboys, and there were these things called cowboy music festivals. So I just put a band together, and it was sort of Western swing meets bebop. It became this band Cowbop, and we have 4 records out and toured the world, and still a playing gig. The cow still moves.
Yep. No, that's really, really cool to hear. And I'm a big, proponent or advocate of a rich and varied musical diet. My transcriptions that I post on YouTube and the videos, the content that I teach, it covers so many different styles, but it does come back to one key thing, which is an appreciation and love and respect of harmony. So to hear someone like yourself there talk about music that grabbed you because it was so harmonically rich, it's pleasing, and I hope everyone takes that cue from you. Like, start getting excited by harmony, because harmony is harmony is beautiful. Chords are
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is. It's it's weird. It's like the color of music. I've got this note. You know what I mean? You can probably hear it. It's just an F. Well, we can play an F chord. We can play a B flat chord. But there's also like. I can do all these things with that note. And when you think of songs as you're playing a melody, all your harmonic options, and it's sort of like the color. It's as if you decide to throw red or green or blue in here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I can give you the comfort of the note you want to hear, but with a little bit of surprise or mystery by the way I harmonize it. And so for me, that's like a lot of the emotion and the storytelling of music comes from the harmony.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And when you listen to all of those, and I want to move on to talking about standards and where the idea of standards comes from, but when you listen to the old standards, they were just, pop tunes, the tunes that people enjoyed playing, and a little bit more harmonically rich than Lady Gaga. So I'm hoping that the reason a lot of people have tuned into this video is because I'm going to talk about the idea of jazz and getting into the idea of jazz and becoming excited by the world of jazz. And you've obviously taught a lot of people over the years. I find that approaching the subject of jazz with new students is usually a difficult one because it's a rich and varied musical genre, 100 years of history there, much more than the rock and metal that I teach a lot of, obviously, and a lot of guitar players play. But when it comes to the idea of introducing jazz to people, I find it very difficult because, modern jazz, not my thing. Past like maybe 1965, you start to lose me. I like all of those traditional. I like swing music. I love swing music. So when it comes to the idea of introducing people to jazz, what would you say if somebody had never really listened to any music that we would call jazz? If you had to give them some artists that they would check out, guys that really put you in love with the sound of the music, and of course songs that are worth listening to.
Well, it depends on what instrument they're really interested in, but of course you have to have Louis Armstrong, and it varied, not just like the last caricature part of him, which was still great, Hello Dolly and that stuff. That was great, but no, go back and kind of follow the trajectory of that man. That's jazz right there. And we're all descendants of that spirit, of that attitude, of that approach. And then, moving beyond that, I would say people like Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young on the saxophone, and Charlie Parker. Guitar players, you definitely want to listen to Charlie Christian, Barney Kessel, which
who we're about to come
to. Kenny Burrell, Grant Green, Wes Montgomery, Joe Pass. Those are people that you just can't, you need to just check out. And I would suggest to anybody who's just considering an interest in jazz, don't get too intimidated by all the notes and all the activity and all the harmony and everything, and just get into the songs. It's a rich, great things. I have a podcast called Guitar Wank with Scott Henderson. Pardon the indelicate name. And at our website, guitarwank.com, I have one, there's a episode called, it's number 99, the letter V as in Victor. I talk about what I call the mother tunes, 10 tunes. If you want to know about jazz, just learn these 10 songs and you'll be able to hear the music better. You'll have a deeper, the understanding of how the chords work, how the melodies interact with the chords. And of course, there's lots of great versions of those songs to go check out. The mother tunes, that's where I would start, any guitar player. And these songs are not hard to play. These are very friendly songs. They're melodic songs. They sound good. They've got chords you want to use in all the songs you play. And so it teaches you about, like, everything came from these songs. All the songs that we still play, they're very blues-based, as well as all the music you play in pop or rock or metal or whatever. I would go for episode 99V. It's just 10 tunes, and I'm playing a guitar while I'm talking about it, so you can hear when I say, oh, yeah, this one starts on the 4-chord, or this one likes to go around the cycle. I mean, I'm actually playing it so you can hear it and identify it. And, of course, as a player or as a teacher, as soon as we give people the gift of being able to hear what they're doing and hear what's happening,
Yeah.
when the music comes to life.
Yeah. There's one thing that you didn't mention there, and I hate to. I don't want anyone to feel that I'm forcing this answer upon you, but you didn't mention any singers. I mean, you mentioned Louis Armstrong.
Oh, yes, and of course I love vocalists. A lot of instrumentalists are kind of biased against. I mean. And I didn't even mention John Coltrane, which to me is, a person who pushed the music maybe further than anybody did in more ways,
yeah.
or Miles Davis. But yes, singers, I love, my girl singers, Ella Fitzgerald, of course, Julie London, Anita O'Day, Billie Holiday. Those people to me just, inform so much of what I do. And a lot of great male singers like Nat Cole and Johnny Hartman. I just suggest everybody check it out. And as you guitar players out there, if you get into this music, chances are you're going to be accompanying singers.
Yeah.
So it's great. There's a lot of great, singer duo records with guitar, a lot of bigger bands that have guitar, and even Frank Sinatra loved the guitar. A lot of those guys, Al Viola, Tony Mottola, were my friends, and Frank loved the guitar. Bing Crosby was best friends with Eddie Lang, one of the first real jazz guitar players. So the guitar and the voice, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm sure everybody sits around playing and singing songs. There's a reason for that. The guitar is just made to go with the voice. So I would highly suggest. Thank you for bringing that up. I know I didn't mention them, but they have a huge part in my heart.
Yeah, it just helps when I listen to standards. It helps to remind me that these songs almost always came from something where there was a singer first, and we adapt that melody for our instrument. And therefore, I think that when I'm talking to new students and introducing the idea of a little bit of jazz harmony, we're always going to an Ella record, because if you can't listen to, and I see this a lot actually, students that they come to me saying, I want to learn a lot about jazz, and I say, well, what jazz do you like? And they say, well, I don't really listen to jazz. I don't like that. I can't really listen to a lot of jazz. And it's like, well, do you want to play jazz, or do you feel you're supposed to play to play jazz? You go and listen to those early records, and I think that when you start with like swing music, you listen to Duke Ellington or the Glenn Miller Orchestra, whatever it happens to be. If you don't fall in love with the sound, then the modern stuff that you feel that you're supposed to do now, there's probably no point. It's just not for you. Not all music is for everybody. Anyone watching?
Exactly. I'm 100% behind that. It's not for everybody. I mean, I don't like a lot of kinds of music that a lot of people freak out about. You know what I mean? So it's, but I check it out. Whenever anybody tells me about it, I always listen to it with an open mind, and whether I decide I like it or want to play it, that's my decision. But I try to listen to it with an open mind, and I really appreciate other people's taste and point of view. It's just, it comes down to my aesthetic ultimately.
Sure.
And I would say jazz is such a varied thing. It's easy to just, to hear one little part of it and say you don't like it, or to be intimidated by it because it's so technical at times. And I don't really like that aspect of it. Yes, we play when I play, generally, even my originals, I imagine them to have words. There's a story there, there's a melody there. And that's the song. I mean, we were talked about harmony earlier. I mean, I got a melody. I can harmonize it a bunch of different ways, but it's still the melody. That's the bones. And I'm just adding color and texture to those bones. And without those bones, I don't have anything.
So let's move on to the man of the hour, because we're here realistically today to talk about Barney Kessel. And you have why don't you tell people about your history with Barney?
Well, I met Barney when I was real young. I heard him play, and back in the day, when he came through San Francisco, which is where I was growing up, he would do like a workshop in the afternoon and then the gig, and you could buy a ticket to both. It was kind of, cheaper, and so I would go to the workshop. I'd always bring a guitar, and if he ever asked if anybody wanted to play, I'd be like the first guy running up to the stage, and I probably injured a few people on my way up, and we played, and he took a liking to me. And he took me on the road, and we played a lot over the years. And he used to tell me, he says, you know what I like about you? He says, you play the way I play, but you don't sound like me. He was talking about some other young guitar players who were kind of copying him.
Sure.
And while they played really good, he didn't like that. He didn't want to hear his shit come back at him. You know what I mean? He wanted to hear somebody kind of playing. And what I think he meant by that was somebody who likes to swing with a lot of energy, harmonically inventive, ready to try anything at any time. I mean, a lot of people put down Barney because he was kind of so, what's the word, messy, a little sloppy in his technique at times, but he was going for stuff that had never been on a guitar before.
Sure.
You know, I mean, he was his mind and his musicality was so far beyond his technique that he was going for stuff. You know, you could hear it, and I've always kind of been that way. I mean, you know, I try not. I mean, I don't embrace sloppiness. I try to be as clean as possible, but if I hear a musical idea, I feel like it's my responsibility to go for it at that moment, because I may not hear that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
That may never happen. I need to find out what's going to happen if I do this. So, and that was a real Barney trait, you know, and of course he played this guitar his whole career pretty much. I mean, he really was monogamous throughout his career. A couple of moments where he had some different guitars, and in the studio when he worked, he used a lot of different guitars. But when he had his jazz thing going, this guitar was pretty much what he played the whole time. It's a 1946 Gibson ES 350, and this pickup is a Charlie Christian from 1939, predates the guitar. There's a cool YouTube thing of him talking about the guitar. It's called Barney Kessel Talks About His Guitar, if anybody's interested in getting more background on this instrument. And of course, to me, it's great to have it in my hands. I love the sound of it. I kind of changed it. He really had it set up in a different way. He liked a lot of relief in the neck, and it was kind of hard to play here and super low action here. I kind of straightened all that out and made it a little more consistent across the guitar. But every time I pick it up, I know I've got heavy shoes to fill in the morning when I play my first chorus of the day on Instagram. It's like, it reminds me, it's like, hey, man, you know, you got to throw down here. There's no, you know.
That really is a fabulous way to look at it. I obviously, at this stage in my life, I don't own any guitars that my heroes played. I'm hoping to get there one day. One day. I do own Danny Gatton's watch, which I think is really
cool. Well, that's, you know, so you're telling time in some rare cotton.
But one day maybe I'll get to own one of my heroes' guitars. Though the thought, just as you put it there, having the big shoes to fill, must be a hell of a thing that plays with your head. You're holding a lot of history there, which is unbelievable.
That's right. Cool. You know, and you get older, and you know, it just happens to you, Levi. You know, I don't feel like this. I mean, I look in the mirror and I get shocked. You know, and I mean, it's like, who's that guy? You know, I mean, I still feel like I'm that 20-year-old kid or 17-year-old kid that met Barney Kessel for the first time. You know, and here I am, you know, way advanced from that, and I realize also though that I've got stories to tell that nobody knows about, that people probably want to know. And so that's one of the reasons we're talking, is this new project I've got called 100 BC.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
I can.
Okay. This means Barney turned 100 last October, and Chet Atkins turns 100 this coming June. And so my friend Pat Bergeson and I, great guitar player in Nashville, who was in Chet's band for many years and did a lot of recording with Chet and helped produce records with Chet.
And
Chet
Jerry Reed. And he played with Jerry Reed, which is even
He played with Jerry Reed, too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, and he played with Tommy Emmanuel, you know, I mean, it's like Pat's a badass and a great guitar player in a lot of different styles. And so our plan was to celebrate Barney and Chet at 100. And basically, to our knowledge, and I've done a lot of research, they never hung out. I know they loved each other. I mean, Barney, I would talk about Chet with Barney. I'm sure Chet was very aware of Barney. And so we're kind of correcting history. By getting their guitars together, we're getting them together, and it's just going to be a love fest of hanging out. You know, no big arrangements or anything. Make a record, just playing tunes and telling stories. And we're doing a road trip from Luttrell, Tennessee, where Chet was born, to Muskogee, Oklahoma, where Barney was born, which goes through Nashville and Knoxville and Chattanooga, Fayetteville, Little Rock, Memphis, and Tulsa will be at for the end of it all. So it's like a road trip, and then we're also going to record a record, and we're asking for everybody's support on Kickstarter, and we're trying to keep their legacy alive, and we're thinking everybody should be telling their stories 100 years from now. It should be 200 BC is what I'm hoping. So.
Well,
and I appreciate your letting me tell your fans about this, because I think we are putting we're putting a lot of content up on social media, but the choice stuff all goes up on the Kickstarter. Only the people who support us get to see that.
Yeah, I'll make a plea to the audience on your behalf.
Thank you.
So for those of you that are watching this, Bruce obviously mentioned the Kickstarter. I will post a link to that in the description. Please do go and check it out. And if you're able to, consider supporting it for the history of music. Because music's in a really, really strange place at the moment, and it's a dark place, and it's a place that I don't see getting a whole lot brighter anytime soon, because music costs a lot of money to produce. Quality art costs a lot of money to produce, but we live in this really dark time where most of you guys are watching this video, or you're watching it for free on YouTube, and you consume your music for free on Spotify, and it's so easy to say, oh, I'll just wait for that project to come to Spotify, and then I'll get to listen to it then. But if everybody does that, projects don't happen. Money needs to exist in order to make projects happen. And this is a cool project, and as soon as we get done with this video, I'll be going and supporting this project too, because that's how great art happens. Great art has always happened because people become patrons of the arts, and they put money in. And yes, you could always wait for a sale, and you could always get something cheaper, but that stops the art happening. So please do go and consider checking out the Kickstarter and supporting what I'm sure is going to be a fabulous record. And if you're able to go and check out one of the shows, absolutely do, because without our support, art goes away, music goes away, and live music is fantastic, recorded music is fantastic, and years from now I want to be able to look back and say that we all collectively made the world a better place than just sat idly by while Spotify took over. I feel like I should put in a...
Well, Levi, that was inspiring. I got to tell you, man. And also, regardless of how dark you may think it is, you are making it a brighter place. So thank you for that.
Always doing our best. Always doing our best. Like you mentioned that you do Guitar Wank with Scott. Scott Henderson is coming over to the UK in a couple of months' time, and he is playing about 500 miles away from my house. But I'm traveling. I'm getting a hotel, and it's realistically it's far more money than I should possibly be spending on going and see a gig. But that's what makes the art happen, and just knowing that I will have been able to be there and get to see Scott play again makes it worth it. So if you're able to support the arts, if you're in a position of privilege where you can support artists, please do, or it all goes away. So that's my plea to the people.
Wow, that's so beautiful, man. Thank you. And of course, you're preaching to the to the choir right here. But but really, I mean it. By you giving us all a voice, and you by bringing all this to people and making them aware of things, you're doing a huge service to all of us. And I on behalf of everybody, just want to thank you for that.
Well, you are more than welcome. I remember writing an article many years ago plugging John Brown, that he's a metal guitar player, and I bought his record and then wrote this piece about it. And I said I didn't know much about John. People had said that he was worth checking out, and I bought his EP for I think it was about £7, which is about $10. And my logic was, if I don't like it, the worst thing that's happened is $10 has gone in the pocket of a musician that's out there working hard, and I'm out $10, which is the cost of a couple of coffees. So I can go without in order to keep the arts going, and we can all do this. We can all, when you go see bands and they survive based on there being a tip jar, put some money in the tip jar. It all helps, and I'm passionate about this.
We all support each other. It's really good. And of course, if you find it a compelling idea, just tell people about it.
Yeah.
That's people don't realize that helps so much. That just by saying, hey, I heard this guy on this podcast the other day, and he really had an interesting story. Let's check it out. And even just the first things of YouTube or whatever, to find out if you do in fact like it and want to support it. That's right there. It makes your life better, and it changes the world. It really does.
Yeah, 100%. I often forget that side of things because I'm so hell-bent on trying to get people to financially support projects that I miss that key thing of saying, if you're unable to, that's awesome too. Share the videos, tell people about it, because there being an audience is also important, and finding that audience comes from you guys, sharing content. So yeah, that's that's really cool. In terms of the material that you're going to be putting on that record, is that are you writing things for that, or is the intention to play?
No, the intention is to the way I look at it is like, to our knowledge, those two guys never got a chance to hang out together.
Yeah.
So by getting their guitars together and being personal friends, and they were our bosses, they were our mentors, they were our friends, they were our idols, everything. By getting us together and their guitars together, we're sort of correcting a historical, anomaly or oversight. And what I want to do is just make it like as if they had gotten together for the first time. Every gig we do, the recording session is just walk in, hey, let's play this song, and I play the way I play, and Pat plays the way he plays. But we, of course, the ghosts of Barney and Chet are there with us, and we just let everybody experience the true two people getting together and sharing music and from a different perspective.
Sure.
What the way it is when you have a conversation with somebody from a different place.
Yep.
The discoveries that happen, the surprise, the challenges, the competition, all of that is in there, and I want people to hear that in reality. So we purposely have said no big arrangements unless I said, hey, I've got this song, you want to play it? I want to play it this way, and boom, we'll play it that way. And I'm sure we'll have video. We have done some recording together in the past with these guitars, so that will be on the Kickstarter. Some of those videos are up now, even on the Kickstarter site, so people can hear it and kind of get an idea of what the whole thing's about. Neither of us are. I'm not going to play Barney's licks. Pat isn't going to use a thumb pick very much. He's going to play his way. I mean, the reason why Chet hired him was because, Chet hired him like right out of college. When he went to I think Pat said to him, he said, I don't really play with a thumb pick all that much. And Chet says, that's what I do. I want you to play all that other stuff I hear you playing. I need the jazz and the rock and the flat pick, and I need that, and that's what I want. And so, Pat oh, great. Barney was the same way with me. He just didn't want me to play like him. He wanted me to play like me, and but when you played with Barney, you better be aware he was extremely competitive, and he was there to make you bleed. You know what I mean? And I've got to say that he did many times, but I also got to say in my behalf, a couple of times I got him good. You know what I mean?
That's really because I often people make silly comments when they see a video where there's a fret wrap on the guitar or whatever, and they say you shouldn't use that. That's cheating. And I say, well, music isn't a competition, so there's no competitive element implied, so you can't really cheat at music. And if you can, then frets are also cheating. But it's kind of fun to hear the idea that guys like that, who we think of being some of the kind of originators or early influencers in the sound, had that kind of competitive streak in there. It's because we are all human. It's a very human thing to inherently.
And it's beautiful. I don't, when you're competing with somebody, really what you're doing is you're trying to do your best. I mean, yes, you want to beat them, but really the way you do that is by demanding the most of yourself. So that's a good thing. I don't, competition is, brings the best out of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. When you're evil and you sabotage things, then that's not good. But then again, that's a part of competition too, just being smarter. You're right. Yeah. Taking it to a place where, I mean, boxers do it in the ring, and, and it's like, they're probably good friends after the fight. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, well, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I don't know. I just I just remember how rough it was on Barney. And there's this funny story that his wife, his widow now, tells. She likes to tell about how, one day they were going to a gig. This was later, long after I'd played with him a lot. I was in my 30s by then. And he was coming to a gig with me. She gets in the car. She used to drive all the time, but he got in the back seat instead of the front seat, and she was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And he said to her, he says, "Well, I'm playing with Bruce Forman today." He says, "I got to practice."
That's cool. That's yeah. That's
Yeah, it's so Barney when you think about it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll guarantee I was practicing that day. You know?
Okay, so I'd like to move towards closing things up with the idea of you playing, and you've got a guitar there, so I'll put you on the spot. You do
Okay.
you do a chorus a day on first chorus of the day over on Instagram. That's a great way for people to get a feel for what your playing's about. And in fact, if I grab this, I can see one behind you, but I can see.
Whoa! Yes, the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are just transcriptions of arrangements of that sort of thing, right? It's you playing tunes. I think it would be cool if people could get a feel for some of your playing. So, what goes through your mind when you just pick a tune and you just play? Like,
yeah, I just kind of pick a tune and decide what key I'm going to do it in, and then I do it. And I mean, generally speaking, with first chorus of the day, what my goal is to establish the melody at the beginning so that everybody knows what song it is, and then kind of improvise on it, see where it goes, and then end it. Make sure there's an ending to it. That's kind of a thing, and of course Ruby is a big part of that, my dog.
yes.
And I've got to get her, come on, up, Ruby, up. Okay, she's got to be a part of it because this is the act, right?
Yeah. She's like, right, come on then, Dad, play some music for me.
She's waiting for the tune now.
Yeah. I love it.
When I'm finished.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's because she gets pets or whether she just is glad the music stopped.
I don't know. There was a look of anxiety in her eyes watching you, like when's my chance? But maybe that's I feel that way sometimes when I listen to a lot of great jazz musicians. I was lucky enough to get to see Mike Stern maybe 15 times while I lived in London. And the thing I love about Mike when he really goes for it is it always feels like he's right on the edge of tripping up and screwing it and like falling apart, but it never happened. And there's a degree of excitement and anxiety that comes with that. So
Yeah,
maybe that's what she's
I mean, you're feeling that because I'm feeling it. Oh, really? I mean, I'm playing along, and it's like the thing about music to me, and Barney was a big person who helped instill that in me, which is like, the music, if we're going to improvise like we are in jazz, like it's not really just like a little 8-bar interlude on a song, but an actual story being told over the form of the song, that already exists. It needs to have continuity. It needs to have a motivic development. It needs to make sense. It needs to be able to be followed. It needs to have a narrative line that has emotion and content.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm playing, I'm listening to what I'm playing. And when I hear something, particularly when I'm playing by myself, because I don't have the band introducing ideas, I'm hearing like, when you probably heard me go, if you go back in there, I went those chord punches, bop, 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 bop. And then I kind of started to make it more melodic, and then I needed a bass note against it. I'm hearing like, kind of what needs to happen in the story to go. But meanwhile, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, this is like, I never did it before, really. I just hear it and I want it and I make it happen. And so there's that context, of course, beginning, middle, end, but there's also like the most important thing for what happens is what just happened. So I'm always listening to like my playing for a melodic idea or a rhythmic idea, or maybe a texture. I used a chord or I used a bass note, something that informs the decision of the next thing to play. And you know, that's what makes a good story. When you read a book, when you watch a movie, you know, it's like the context of when things happen and what happened right before them. And so I know a lot of people who don't like jazz find it very technical and very run on and very and my I do too. I'm just here to tell you. Sometimes I find it very much all about the playing and not about the story being told.
Sure.
And I'm not a big fan of that.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a person that can really appreciate playing an instrument. You know, I've spent my whole life trying to do it, but it's still not the thing that floats my boat.
Yep.
The music is the thing that floats my boat. You know, and I mean, if you can tell a story like Hank Williams did on "Hey Good Looking," or you know, or "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," you know, I mean, now you've got me.
Yeah. Yeah, fully support that. Yeah, so be about the music. And I say be about the music, and I'm going to ruin that by recommending people check out the Kickstarter, and then, well, that is music, but then check out that book, Solo Jazz Guitar Etudes.
Yes, please, please. All that stuff is as you know, it's transcribed. So not only you can go to the internet and listen to me play something, and then you can see it written out and in tablature. And of course, the tablature is correct because they had video to reference. And I have some strange ways of playing the guitar that I think a lot of you guitar players might find like, wow, that's an interesting way to do that, and might find that it fits within your, you know, the way the neck works better for you. So my suggestion for how to use that book is go along and find something you really like the sound of. Just get that. You know, figure out what chord it goes over, know that you can use it in the various songs that have those chords at that moment, you know, and kind of don't feel like you have to learn the entire piece, you know, although that's great. I also find it's a great little resource book too, not necessarily it says etudes, but in the sense that you don't have to play the whole thing. You can just grab what you like out of it. And I suggest everybody do that in their practice as well, just listening to records. Finds, you know, if you hear Jeff Beck play something great over an E minor chord, learn it, and then, you know, and then you now over every minor chord, you've got another cool thing to play, and then figure out how to create variations of it to make it your own.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of work transcribing a whole solo, especially if there's only one lick in there that you love. Like,
right.
Yeah,
right. But you know, there's many ways to use this book or that concept of learning music that doesn't take, you know, like the full thing. You know, I mean, when you eat a steak, usually you cut a piece and you take a bite and you chew it and swallow it before you take another bite. You know what I mean? So you don't have to shove the whole thing in your mouth. And I think some people get a little bit, feel a little intimidated by so much information, when the whole idea is, no, you know, listen to it and find what you want, grab that and grab the next thing, you know. And of course, all the things that I probably played in this book, I have master classes at mymusicmasterclass.com. They're videos. And they're very focused on what subject each one is. I was careful not to just do the same everything I know in every video. Like the first one's kind of general, but after that they all go on, like, you know, intros and endings, or playing the blues, or playing chords, or, you know, that kind of a thing. And how to transpose. I really tried to focus on one specific aspect of my playing, and those things are very affordable. And, you know, I suggest people, you know, I mean, I have a lot of fun doing it. You know, I mean, it's, you know, let's face it, if we're not having a good time doing this, we can, you know, I mean, I know a lot of people just play music to piss off their parents, but, you know, I like it.
I relate to that in more ways than one. You start doing, or at least I started doing it because my parents hated the idea, but now it's just me. It's who I am. It's who we are. If you're watching this video 30 minutes into this conversation between two musicians on opposite sides of the world, you're one of us. Spoilers, you're one of us.
That's right. Music. There's no going back for you. Sorry.
But it's a cool journey. So thank you so much for your time, Bruce. Where can people go out and check more of your stuff?
Well, you know, come on Instagram at Formanism, And then I'm Bruce Forman on Facebook. And BruceForman.com has my calendar and all my projects. Obviously, the 100 BC on Kickstarter. Really appreciate everybody's support because you'll make it happen. We need to record a CD and put it out. We need some support for the tour because let's face it, we're just kind of, and we're going to be making the equivalent of a documentary or a reality TV show for you. So you'll get to watch it, and you'll be a supporter of it. Come in at any level you feel comfortable. There's lots of great rewards, or just support it because you think it's worth it, and you get access to all the content. And really, we're hoping that, like I say, that these musical instruments go on telling stories for another 100 years.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. So you heard the man. Link in the description. Go and support his Kickstarter project and make some cool music happen. Bruce, thank you so much for
Thank you for all that you do. You're really making the world a better place, and I want to thank you for that.
Anybody that makes music, anybody that makes art, anybody that consumes art, anybody that supports art is making the world a better place. I'm not any different than any of you guys watching this. Just be passionate about the arts and we can collectively make wonderful things happen. So Bruce, thank you very much.
Thank you, Levi. Great to see you
again in the future.
All right, take care.